And I'm certain it'll happen again if we don't get some things taken care of. And I mean, I'd like to visit with you all night about it, but let's go on to something else if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, change the subject here. Adam, what is your opinion on Common Core?
I am the only cd01 candidate who has voted against Common Core.
Yes.
I am the only one. Our other primary opponent voted for Common Core last year. You voted for it by voting for the park tests. That was Common Core. That is the Common Core testing. I'm proud to have been one of the few conservatives who stood up and said no, along with my seatmate Steve Smith. Common Core will destroy this country. It will destroy it. It is an international standard that they are using to subvert you and you and you. They are using it to subvert our principles that made this country great. It is expensive. So you're going to love this one. When asked in committee, when I asked, how much will this cost in committee? They said, and I quote, somewhere between, Justin was there, you remember this, somewhere between $70 million and I don't know what.
Yeah.
That's the nonpartisan joint legislative budget committee said something between 70 million and I don't know what. Ladies and gentlemen, when they tell you that, it's closer to I don't know what. We need to stop Common Core in its tracks. We need proven conservatives. I don't want any No Child Left Behind. We have to bring education as close to the parents as humanly possible. I have a 100% school choice record, 100% pro-homeschool record. We need to make sure that I trust you. I trust you so much more than a faceless bureaucrat. I trust you more than a faceless bureaucrat at the state level. I definitely trust you more than a faceless bureaucrat at the federal level who doesn't educate one child. But this is what the feds do. They promise you so much money if you just adopt this. If you just adopt that. We need to start sending conservatives to Washington who will stand up and fight. And that, so it's such an important issue of the day. We stand up against Common Core.
Well, I think it's an example of federal control over state rights. And I'd caution anybody to be real careful of it. Thank you.
All right, Gary? How do you feel about free trade agreements, more specifically the Trans-Pacific Partnership and Japan's reluctance to exclude nearly 600 of their tariff lines, thereby threatening one of the largest free trade agreements ever between countries that include the USA and 10 other Pacific countries?
Well, I'm for free trade. I think it's an integral part of supply and demand throughout the world. And, you know, I support free trade fully. As far as a treaty that you're referring to, I haven't looked into it, so I wouldn't be able to comment much further than that, but I will tell you that I totally support free trade. Thank you.
I'm 100% for free trade, but we need to make sure that we have the policies in place that aren't going to ship all our jobs off to China. We have to make sure that we put policies in place that don't have a closed for business sign on American industry. We invite industry back and we make ourselves wealthy by trading with other nations and deregulating our own markets so we don't punish American manufacturers, American energy, American steel, American jobs. We need to make sure that every free trade agreement we do, we are also ensuring that our U.S. economy is preserved by limiting government, lowering regulation, lowering taxes, and inviting some folks back home. That's how we grow this country.
Adam, next question. With the current administration, how would you get support to start up oil exploration and drilling on federal land?
With this current administration.
I just read them as a whole.
All right, so here's the deal. You have to be able, when you're in this business, you have to be able to sell a ketchup popsicle to women in white gloves. I'll give you an example of the first bill I passed in the legislature. We got Marana wastewater treatment plant. Marana was able to purchase their future by allowing a wastewater treatment plant to be owned by them. How do I get this wastewater treatment plant passed? It had to repeal a law. The first law that I wrote actually was a repeal bill. The very people who voted for the law in the past legislature, I had to convince to say you did wrong and you should undo that for the benefit of the district. So what we did is we brought people who were against repealing the law and talked to them about how we're going to create a booming future for our towns. Henry Kissinger famously said, diplomacy is when you let other people have your way. Let's give Barack Obama those jobs in our district. Let's give Barack Obama that economic growth in our district. Because if it's making our lives better, it doesn't have to be my plan. That's the way we have to be able to sell it. I have a proven record of being able to do just that. From the first moment I got to the legislature. We need to stand on principle while working with anybody who's able to make the right decision, even when we're letting them have our way.
In order to stimulate oil and gas development on federal lands, you got to take away all the dadgum regulations that are the stumbling blocks to keep you from getting onto them, such as the Endangered Species Act, such as the EPA, and all of those stumbling blocks that they place in front of us to keep us from getting on the federal lands. Archaeological studies, frog studies, potentially endangered jackrabbits. I mean, it's unbelievable the stumbling blocks that they place in front of you. The prairie chicken. I mean, I've drilled oil wells in West Texas and southeastern New Mexico for 30 years. I've yet to see a prairie chicken. Thank you.
I'm going to skip this one. I'll give it to you because I pulled and I said, what's your position on ranching on federal lands?
I love every bit of it as long as they let us ranch on it. No, I truly think that the ranches, the lands need to be put back into multiple use or sold, one or the other, like I said.
4.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
All right. What are you going to do to protect the grid from EMP attack or solar flares, the SHIELD Act?
Well, you know, I think the biggest and most important thing about the grid is the fact that they're trying to keep us from even producing electricity through coal-fired power plants, under the guise that they're going to convert them to natural gas power plants. But the thing that everybody fails to understand is the deliverability of natural gas is totally exaggerated by the federal government. All of their numbers are skewed. If you'll remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, we had 5 or 6 days of extremely cold weather throughout the country. The delivery point for natural gas in West Texas is called the Waha delivery point. They were hollering at everybody. The pipeline company was telling all the oil companies to open your gas wells up, deliver more gas. We couldn't deliver more gas. We'd already maxed out. Because it's kind of like opening a soda pop. When you shake it up and you punch a hole in the top of it, the most pressure you're going to get is that initial flow pressure. And you're not going to produce all of the gas out of it. You just keep shaking it occasionally. But the problem is once you've produced that first pressure gas down your line, you don't have that much deliverability to deliver. And if it had stayed cold 2 more days, we'd have been in trouble in the East Coast. Lights probably would have been out. So the baloney that they're telling you that they're going to be able to start generation of natural gas in our area, in our district, is feasibly, at this point, impossible. I have the pipeline connections to even do it. Thank you.
So the question was about EMP attacks, which is a major threat. It's a major threat because if they take out our grid, If they take out your cell phone, and they take out our emergency management service, we are in big trouble. Voted on that today in the legislature, making sure that Arizona is beginning to get protected. Here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen, we need out of the box ideas. This just occurred to me while Gary was talking. Trent Franks has the bill to appropriate the funds against an EMP attack to secure our grid. But we're having a problem with our national debt, right? Let's save our A10. Let's not go to a brand new system that's years down the line and untested. We have our A10s right now. Let's save our jobs in Davis-Monthan, save our A10, use that money, protect the grid, and have our long-term security protected. That's the type of appropriation experience that I've had. That's the type of ideas that will save jobs in the district and make sure that we are protected in the long run. Thank you.
All right, Madam, your question. Roughly 1/2 of the House Agriculture Committee members are from urban districts. The Supplemental Nutrition Plan, SNAP, is part of the Farm Bill. Should SNAP be separated, and what is your recommendation?
It should absolutely be separated from the Farm Bill. And the fact that they're extending SNAP as far as they're going will bankrupt us and not provide us with the best path to prosperity. You know the best way to provide healthy and nutritious food for those of us in need? Jobs. Jobs. We need, the way out is growth. We need to make sure that those who, by limiting government, the private sector will flourish. And with those long-term principles, we will reduce poverty in this country. It works. Their big government experiment is a failure. And Kirkpatrick's big government experiment is a failure. By removing it from the Department of Agriculture, you now don't have a vice with which everybody has to vote on a bill that will bankrupt us. These are the types of conservative principles that we talk about, that we do in the legislature. Reform, reform, reform to benefit, become leaner, limit government, and have the private sector flourish.
Well, if you look at SNAP, what percentage of the claims you think are fraudulent? It's unbelievable. You know, if we would just prosecute the people for theft within the food stamp system, we'd eliminate a lot of the waste. And you know, you just saw on TV the other day where there's a store owner in Phoenix who was accepting cards for items that weren't eligible to be purchased with them. And they're going to prosecute him as a store owner, but it looks to me like they also need to be prosecuting the people who are utilizing those cards, because in order to commit the fraud and the theft, they had to have a meeting of the minds between the two. And so the people that were stealing from the system aren't going to be prosecuted, and the store owner will be prosecuted. Now, is that fair and just?
Towards the end.
How big a hat you got over there?
All right. The national debt increases dramatically every day. How do we control this runaway train?
Well, you got to make people accountable that are up there, number one. We've been sending career politician up there after career politician. We've been sending lawyers up there that failed in the private sector, in the law business. You've got to stop the waste. You've got to, but the problem is it's gotten so big. You now have a national disaster. This is equivalent to the hurricanes. It's equivalent to any kind of natural disaster you can think of, a tsunami. We're in a wreck, folks. And what you got to do is you've got to stop government wasteful spending. You got to stop printing money, and you've got to make your elected officials accountable. And you can send all of the guys you want to up there, but if they're not willing to get up and make those decisions for fear that they're not going to get reelected, then you're wasting your time. Thank you.
absolutely right. We need more Matt Salmons and David Schweikerts and Ted Cruzes and Rand Pauls and Justin Amash's and Trent Franks and Paul Gosar's. Proven conservatives. I've been ranked by Americans for Prosperity as the most free market limited government member of the Arizona legislature. One of the bills I authored last year was the Compact for America, because I don't trust the feds to rein in their budget. We need a balanced budget amendment with spending limits to the United States Constitution. We do. And the states need to be able to approve any debt limit increase. And by the way, no more debt limit increases. Absolutely not. We need people who are not going to buckle under the arm twisting of lobbyists or John Boehner or Eric Cantor or anybody. It doesn't matter who it is. When they try to get you, when big government Republicans try to get you to raise the debt ceiling, we're in big, big trouble. Never. I pledge you today, I will not raise the debt ceiling. It will never happen. It might happen, but I'm not voting for it. Let me tell you, I'm going to bring a lot of these guys with me. That's the thing. We need to make sure that we send the right proven fighters to Washington, D.C. I've done it at the state level. I'll do it in Congress.
What needs to be done to help keep the Navajo generating station open?
We need a lot more work than what we're seeing out of Ann Kirkpatrick. They're facing 60% unemployment on the reservation. 60% unemployment. Thousands of jobs. That Navajo generating station, that coal-fired power plant sends CAP water through Pinal County. If they shut it down based on overregulation, if they shut down, you're going to have to be digging wells here again in Pinal. That will raise the cost of food. That will raise the cost of water. It's a disaster. And the Obama administration's war on coal is an absolute travesty. It destroys Arizona. For, by the way, they want to prevent the particulate to have a good viewing space of the Grand Canyon, but when they were brought into committee and they testified and said, oh, by the way, it's invisible. The particulate that we're preventing is invisible to the naked eye. So to save the invisible particulate, meaning to have our war on coal, they want to shut down our power plants and hurt our water supply. We need people who are going to do more. Ann Kirkpatrick has written a letter, a very strongly worded letter to the Obama administration. I'm sorry, we need more than a letter. Here's what we do. Here's the solution. The first budget, the first appropriation we pass, I put an amendment in. It's one sentence. It says, the federal government shall spend $0 in regulating the Navajo generating station. We have the power of the purse in the House. We have the power of the purse. If they can't spend any money to regulate us, then they're out of luck. They can't even get on a plane to go look at the invisible particulates. It's the conservative solutions coming from conservative fighters that's going to save this country. Whether it's the generating station or other issues like the RAINS Act that says, this is a great conservative bill, that says any regulation over $100 million has to have congressional approval. It can't just be regulated by the bureaucrats. We need real fighters in Washington, those who will stand up for these conservative principles. Thank you.
Well, you know, I just spoke to you a second ago about having to convert these plants to natural gas. The problem is there's no natural gas line big enough to service the Navajo generating station. So true, we're going to lose a ton of jobs. And until, you know, last week Julie and I visited a power plant up in the Holbrook area. And I'm going to tell you, that's the biggest concern that the manager of those plants have. We sat and talked to them for 2 hours, and all they were talking about was all of the hoops they've had to jump through in order to meet the specifications that continue to change and are moving targets. You've got to stop the EPA regulations that are causing the closing of this power plant. Thank you.
Last one. How do you propose to fix Obamacare?
Well, the only way to truly fix it would be to just totally start over. You know, we've got a president that didn't agree with that when it was proposed by the House. but, and he didn't agree with just not doing it for a year. But you know, he's made 30 some odd tweaks, if you will. Isn't that unbelievable? He's continued to tweak it against the Constitution. The only way you can fix Obamacare is to get rid of it and start over. Healthcare does need reform, but doesn't need to be shoved down our throats. Thank you.
I was the first to stand up against our own party, against Jan Brewer, and say we don't need Obamacare in Arizona when they passed that Obamacare expansion. When they fought for it, I fought against it. I do not believe in Obamacare in Arizona, and I don't believe at all in Obamacare in the United States. When I wrote the bill this year to repeal the Medicaid expansion, or repeal the Obamacare expansion, the other opponent, the gentleman who's not here tonight, said that that was, quote, a fool's errand. I don't believe that fighting against Obamacare is ever a fool's errand. I don't believe what Ted Cruz and Matt Salmon and David Schweikert are doing. They know that Barack Obama's going to veto those bills. They know. But it's worth it because we keep the pressure on. We keep up the fight. And when we take the Senate, we pass it out of both the House and the Senate. And then when we take the White House, that's when we replace it. Now let's talk about solutions. What are we going to do better? Apparently we're going to stop. Can I have one? Is it all right? Can we talk about 3 solutions we're going to do? All right. We have to be able to purchase health insurance across state lines. We need to enable the states to have tort reform. We need FDA reform so that you don't have to drive down to Mexico to get drugs. We need to make sure that we don't have a health care problem in this country. We have a health payment problem in this country. And we have a health payment problem in this country because government is too big. We need to get back to patient-centered care, doctor-centered care, by believing in you, by limiting government. That's how we save this country, and that's how we save our healthcare system for the benefit of those who need it the most. Thank you.
That's the end of our questions. Typically, we do a 2-minute closing, but I personally think there's one glaring subject we didn't hit, at least for me, and so I'll give it to you guys, is border security. We didn't hit that at all, so go for it. Your turn or not?
I've been endorsed by Sheriff Joe Arpaio because I am the most aggressive against amnesty in this race. Sheriff Joe Arpaio trusts me because I'm going to fight with him just like I have in the Arizona legislature. We fight against illegal immigration wherever it stands. We fight to make sure that our citizens are protected, that our areas in the South are protected, so that you don't ever have to see a sign again that says, we cannot protect you here, you should not camp in our land. That is ridiculous. This is a human rights issue. We need to make sure that women who are brought across the border are not put in situations that is such a devastating crime. It's a crime against humanity. If we don't solve this border issue now, if we don't solve our immigration issue now by fighting against amnesty, wherever it stands, and I don't want to hear a path to citizenship. I'm against a path to citizenship. I don't want to hear legal status or a work plan. That's amnesty. It's all amnesty. They try it one way, then they try it another way, and they try it another way. It's amnesty. There's a reason why Sheriff Joe has endorsed me. We fight against amnesty wherever it stands, and we have people coming in the right way. Sign the guest book. Don't come in the back door and raid the refrigerator. We have to protect our citizens first. We're a nation of laws. We're a nation of laws, and we protect ourselves. Thank you.
Well, do you remember when the Vietnam conflict was over, sir? How many Vietnamese did we bring into this country? You know why we didn't get 11 million? Because they couldn't swim that far. Now, until we secure our borders, we're going to continue to have the problem. That's step number 1, you secure your borders. And then you use the common sense approach after that, which obviously doesn't exist in government. But you inventory who's here. You know, it's amazing we can go to Nevada and point guns at our own. We can go up there and threaten to take a man's assets, point guns at him to do it. But we can't secure our southern border. I call BS on that. I say we can't secure our southern border. You inventory the people that are here, There already are work programs that exist. You don't have to create anything new. We had the Oberservs program. We've got H2 programs now that exist. You don't have to make them a citizen of the United States so that they'll vote. You just have to, we've got to have a certain amount of that labor at this point to pick your vegetables, to pick your fruits, and all the rest of it. And if you don't believe it, go down here and watch these dairies milking cows. If you like $3.50 oil or gasoline, you're going to love $7 gas when you kick all the illegals out of the United States, because I challenge you to go to a drilling rig and find somebody that can even speak English on the rig. This is a problem, but it's a problem that's got to be fixed, because it's been happening since I was knee high. They were walking across when I was a kid with blisters on their feet that big around, with shoes made out of tires. Those were the ones that were coming here to work. The ones that are coming here now have questionable reasons to be here. Thank you very much.
All right, a 2-minute closing statement. Who went first? You went first, so.
Well, thank you folks for coming tonight. I'd like to introduce my wife. This is Julie. Julie, my children, my brother Chance, and my stepson here, Daniel. I say he's my stepson because he stayed at my house ever since he was about 12 years old. Anyway, I want to thank you for coming. I hope that you have listened to what we have to say. And once again, I want to tell you that I appreciate you taking an interest in us. Appreciate you looking at the candidates. I would appreciate you looking at their underlying motivation as to why they want to become your congressman. And like I said, it's not a seat that belongs to a career politician, it's your seat. It's the people's seat. And it's up to you to decide who you're going to send up there. I would encourage you to look at everybody's background, everybody's experience in the real business world. Because I can tell you, I'm fed up with sending people up there that have never signed the bottom right-hand side of those checks, that all they've ever done is endorse them back. And until we send people up there that have actually created jobs, that have actually worked in the real business sector, we're going to continue to get the stuff we're getting. $17 trillion in debt plus. Thank you once again for coming. I appreciate you all for putting this forum on, and look forward to seeing you down the trail. Thanks.
Thank you. We have good candidates running for Congress. We have good people. Gary and our friends, I'm proud to serve. I'm proud to work with you and be on the trail with you. I'm Adam Kwasman. I'm running for Congress because I believe that we don't have any more time. We have got to send proven conservative fighters to Washington, D.C., or else we're finished. I was named by Americans for Prosperity as the most conservative, free market member of the Arizona legislature, the House and the Senate. I'm supported by Pinal County Supervisor Tony Smith. I'm supported by Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I am supported by FreedomWorks for America nationally and the Tea Party Leadership Fund. And most importantly, I absolutely believe with all my heart that we're not finished yet. We're not done as a country. See, I feel like the U.S. economy is like a rubber band. Okay, it's like a coil. Think of it like a coil. And the government has pushed us down. It's pushed us down so much. But I haven't forgotten how to be an economist. My pop is a doctor, family doc, everything from diaper rash to arthritis, and he hasn't forgotten how to be a doc. Doesn't matter how many more Obamacare regulations come out. People haven't forgotten to be teachers and engineers and ranchers and hoteliers and oilmen. And all these wonderful things that make the United States amazing. We just need to take off the yoke and see how far we could go, as far as our God-given talents will take us. That's what we need. And we need proven fighters to do it. I've done it in the legislature. Serve you with honor. And I'll serve you with honor in the United States Congress. We need proven fighters, or else we're finished. But I'm not calling it quits yet. I'm Adam Kwasman. I'd be honored to serve you in the United States Congress. I polled against Ann Kirkpatrick in December. I'm beating her among likely voters, and I'm tied among all voters. I haven't spent a dime yet. Raise a banner of bold colors, not pale pastels. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you very much.
I want to thank both of you very much, two gentlemen here, and I just want to say that our future against Ann Kirkpatrick looks bright either way, guys. I appreciate you both for coming. Let's one more round of applause. We're going to present both of you with a official Western Canal Republican coffee cup, and they are for sale for anyone else that wants one for $10. And we have our 50-50 drawing, Mr. Tom Miller, the reason you all came tonight. Next month, Secretary of State and Treasurer, third Wednesday here, 6:30. Mr. Miller, for the 50-50 raffle, how much do we have tonight? $50.